Good afternoon, everyone. Please be seated. Routine proceedings, introduction of bills. Oh, the Honourable Member for Roblin.
On House business.
The Honourable Member for Roblin on House business.
Honourable Speaker, I seek leave to allow the Opposition House Leader to call Bill 221, the Earlier Screening for Breast Cancer Act, to a committee of this House before the end of the first session of the 43rd Legislature.
Is there leave to allow the Opposition House Leader to call Bill 221, the Earlier Screening for Breast Cancer Act, to a committee of this House before the end of the first session of the 43rd Legislature? Is there leave? Leave has been denied. Routine proceedings, introduction of bills. Committee reports. Tabling of reports. And I have a report to table in accordance with section 29 bracket 3 and 30 bracket 6 of the Advocate for Children and Youth Act. I'm tabling the annual report and service plan of the Manitoba Advocate for Children and Youth for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2024. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Honourable Speaker, I am tabling the sequence for departmental estimates for today. Rich.
Ministerial statements. The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And today I'm so happy that we're joined by healthcare support workers. They're here in the gallery with us who do incredible work every single day for patients across Manitoba. Now, we wanted to recognize Healthcare Support Workers Day today in the House because last week we were not sitting during Healthcare Support Workers Week. We are so grateful for the commitment of healthcare support workers to our province, to our communities, and to our loved ones. These folks care for our loved ones when we cannot. They provide daily support, be it emotional or physical support, and increase the quality of life for those who need it. Each and every day, healthcare support workers bring compassion, patience, and strength to their work. It's critical that support workers are treated with the respect they deserve in our province. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the challenges and difficulties that healthcare support workers have faced over the last 7.5 years. The damage that was caused by the former government's neglect and disregard for frontline healthcare workers like you folks with us today and those Manitobans on the front lines of our healthcare system has had a lasting impact on our ability to deliver quality healthcare to Manitobans. They froze your wages for over 5 years. They denied you the ability to practice to your full scope. They cut your jobs and they ignored your voices. Yeah. The members opposite and their friends refuse to do the bare minimum and even meet you at the negotiating table. On this side of the House, we're focused on changing the culture in healthcare and listening to frontline healthcare workers. We have been on a listening tour, listening to frontline healthcare support workers for the past over 1 year, and we have heard directly from you folks and your colleagues across the province what you need to see in healthcare to make your work-life balance, your workplaces, your lives, and the work that you do every single day more fulfilling. And we're proud to listen to your voices and to do that work alongside these frontline healthcare experts. We are working together to change the culture in healthcare, and that starts by listening, and we're going to continue to do that. I'm so glad that we were able to meet healthcare support workers at the negotiating table and come to a fair deal. I want to take a moment to thank MGEU and to thank CUPE for their partnership. We know how you bring voices of the front lines forward, and the advocacy that you do for your members is commendable. And together, we need to take care of those who care for us and our loved ones. Support workers will no longer be overlooked. Their contributions to our province will be forever remembered and respected by our government. We're creating a healthcare system that works for you and for the people of our great province. I'm so proud to be part of a team and a government that understands the importance of the relationships we have with frontline healthcare workers and prioritize their well-being. As a registered psychiatric nurse myself, I have seen firsthand the challenges and the complexities of our healthcare system. I know the realities faced by frontline healthcare workers. The long shifts, the late nights, and sometimes the little to no thanks for the work that you all do. I have been so proud as a nurse for many years to work shoulder to shoulder alongside these very support workers, and it's a privilege and an honor to serve in this role and work shoulder to shoulder alongside with all of you to make healthcare a better place for Manitobans. We look forward to our continued partnerships in bringing care closer to home for those who need it, and I am dedicated to creating a system that works for all of us and for all of you. And so today, we celebrate you. We recognize the invaluable contributions that each of you make to our healthcare system, and we are committed to supporting you in that work. Together, we will continue to build a healthcare system that values every single healthcare worker and patient and their families in Manitoba. I want to thank the healthcare support workers who have joined us in the gallery today. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for your dedication. Thank you for your commitment to making a difference in the lives of others. Happy Healthcare Support Workers Week. I'd ask you all to stand so we can all honor you and celebrate you in the chamber today. Thank you.
The honourable member for Roblin.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And I too would like to welcome the healthcare support workers that have joined us in the gallery today. Welcome to the Manitoba Legislature. And I rise to recognize and sincerely thank those dedicated healthcare support workers across Manitoba, individuals who are the backbone of our healthcare system. Day in and day out, healthcare support workers provide critical services in hospitals, clinics, and long-term care facilities. They are the ones ensuring patients receive the best care possible, that facilities are clean, that supplies are stocked, that everyone has a hot meal, and that patients have a compassionate presence when they need it most. And I just want to share an anecdote about a healthcare support worker that I know. She works in the kitchen of a rural hospital, and there was a longer-term patient in that hospital who was vegan. And anybody who's vegan, I'm not personally, but they will tell you that sometimes the menu options are not great. But this healthcare support worker took it upon herself to take what they had in the kitchen and put together just a really good hot meal for that patient. And that made such a difference in his day. He actually said to her, "You saved my life today." And he was so grateful. And that's, she typically doesn't get a lot of glory in her job. There's not a lot of accolades and not a lot of thank yous, but I know that meant a lot to her. And that speaks to what dedicated healthcare support workers do and the difference that they can make in patients' lives. But, Honourable Speaker, these workers deserve more than just thanks and words. They deserve meaningful action from this government. A recent poll from Manitoba Nursing Union members, who are important colleagues of the healthcare support workers that join us in the gallery today, revealed that 88% of its members do not believe the NDP government has made any meaningful improvements to the healthcare system over the past year. They say nothing has changed. That's nearly 9 out of 10 of our frontline healthcare workers saying their work is made harder every day because of this government's failure to live up to its huge election promises. Healthcare workers, including healthcare support workers, have been in our inboxes, on social media, and all over the province saying they do not feel heard by this NDP government. And as we saw this morning during Private Members' Hour, the NDP is far more concerned with patting itself on the back than taking meaningful action for healthcare workers and for patients across Manitoba. We owe our healthcare support workers more than just gratitude. We owe them action. Thank you.
Member statements. The honourable member for Burrows.
Today, I would like to recognize Punjabi Community Health Services Manitoba. PCHS was established in 2022 to address the health and mental wellness needs of Manitoba's growing South Asian population. They got charitable status in August 2024. PCHS provides grassroots community-based services that support clients and families accommodating their needs by meeting them in their communities, homes, or cultural spaces, ensuring that their clients are connected to the appropriate resources as soon as possible. PCHS has identified the need for a women's counselor and emphasized the importance of ongoing system navigation and outreach support from their social worker. PCHS Manitoba has developed partnerships that focus on the well-being of the South Asian population in Manitoba. Working with the Restorative Justice Committee, the PCHS is ensuring that clients in the legal system receive culturally appropriate mental health counseling and family services. Recently, they partnered with the Ontario PCHS branch to launch a South Asian youth peer support group next fall and refine accredited group therapy programs in a South Asian cultural context. Through an evidence-based approach, the PCHS aims to build community capacity with a focus on prevention, wellness, and cultural competency through collaborations that work towards meeting the needs of Manitoba's growing South Asian population. Please join me in welcoming PCHS Vice Chair Rupinder Brar, Secretary on the board, and contracted social worker Ronnie Taliwal, and volunteers to the gallery, and in recognizing the incredible work they do in supporting the well-being of Manitobans. Shukriya, Honorable Speaker.
The honourable member for Dawson Trail.
Today I honor Mr. Ryan Kristolovich. Ryan is a resident of Lorette, Manitoba. He has dedicated his career protecting and promoting public safety. He also volunteers his time within Lorette and the hockey community. Around Christmas time, after not feeling right, he went to his doctor and was sent to a surgeon. It was at this time that the surgeon advised him that they had found a cancerous tumor. He then went to surgery to remove the tumor along with many lymph nodes. There was a node with cancer found. Ryan started a 3-month chemotherapy cycle, and on August 7, 2024, he received his last chemo treatment. As some of you may know, when you are done your treatment, you ring a bell to signify your end of your treatment and to signify a positive look forward. Unfortunately, at the clinic, there was no bell. His wife posted on a local Facebook page asking the community members to step outside, honk a horn, bang on a pot, or ring a bell. On August 7th, unbeknownst to him, horns and honking started. The Lorette Fire Department led a parade of over 40 vehicles, all honking and ringing, celebrating the end of Ryan's treatment. Ryan was completely overwhelmed at that moment, having no idea that it was going to happen, and he was extremely shocked with the support. We contacted Ryan to ask for some words of advice for others who might be going through their own health battles. His answer was family and community. During a cancer diagnosis, there are many uncertainties, so many fears, and the key to his mental support was family and friends. Ryan says the hockey community in Lorette would check in, make sure him and his family knew they were there for all the support that may have been needed. He was so incredibly grateful for his employer, for his coworkers, and the constant check-ins and well wishes, his family and friends, and his neighbors, and even some strangers to ensure they were all okay. Ryan, thank you for being open and sharing your story, because there are many individuals who found hope and peace in your journey. Colleagues, please stand and welcome Ryan. Ryan, we are here with you, standing in your journey.
The honourable member for Waverley.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Today I rise to recognize the extraordinary bravery of the 2nd Battalion Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry for their response to the recent wildfires in Jasper. This summer, Jasper faced devastating fires, and when help was needed, the soldiers of 2 PPCLI from Shiloh responded swiftly, showing courage and selflessness. And as a former firefighter, I understand the immense challenges of firefighting, the physical and mental demands, the risks, and the need for quick, decisive action. These soldiers faced these challenges with resilience, and their dedication is both commendable and inspiring. The efforts of 2PPCLI exemplify the highest standards of service. Working closely with officers, first responders, and government officials, they played a vital role in firefighting, evacuation support, and protecting the community. Their commitment to service before self stands as a powerful example for us all. And in the face of unprecedented wildfire challenges, 2PPCLI mobilized with skill and a profound sense of purpose. Today, we honor the members of 2PPCLI and all emergency responders for their unwavering courage. They are a source of hope and strength for our communities. We are deeply grateful for their service. Manitoba is proud to be home to 2PPCLI and the Canadian Armed Forces members who embody the best of our province and our country, always ready to answer the call. I'd like to acknowledge the following members of 2PPCLI who have joined us here in the gallery today. Lieutenant Colonel Braybrook, Chief Warrant Officer Barter, Warrant Officer Ryan, Private Pilipates, Corporal Gibosh, Master Corporal Stevens, and Master Corporal Salustro. Thank you so much.
The honourable member for Borderland.
This year marks 150 years of Mennonites in Manitoba. To commemorate this anniversary, I joined many constituents in the village of New Berktal several weeks ago for a screening of Where the Cottonwoods Grow, a documentary by filmmaker and Halbstadt native Dale Hildebrand. The film tells the story of the first Mennonite migration from southern Russia to southern Manitoba between 1874 and 1880, with a focus on the difficult circumstances they faced. Both the United States and Canada were aggressively competing at that time to attract Mennonites to their open prairies, and 10,000 moved to places like Kansas, while 7,000 moved to southern Manitoba. Some Mennonites stayed in the East Reserve, the area in which Steinbach is located, while others moved to the West Reserve, in which Altona and Winkler are located. After disembarking at the confluence of the Red and Rat Rivers and spending 1 month at Fort Dufferin near Emerson, they struck out further west, but not before tragically suffering the loss of over 30 babies and children in 1 month due to sickness. It was the Mennonites who first dug wells and found water west of the Red River, and so established communities that today are peaceful and prosperous. Thousands of Mennonites would be prosecuted, heavily fined, and even jailed in the 1910s and 20s for exercising their right to raise their children in their own schools as opposed to government-run schools. Despite their pacifist views, they bought more war bonds in World War I than the average Manitoban, and half of eligible young men volunteered to fight in World War II. Mennonites have always been generous and compassionate, and the established organizations like Mennonite Disaster Service and Mennonite Central Committee, the MCC thrift stores that are still popular in our communities today. Olympian Cindy Clausen, philanthropist and businessman Johnny Buehler, and the member for Steinbach, former premier and now a distinguished member of the opposition backbenches, represent some of the contributions of Mennonites to Manitoba's rich cultural fabric. Here's to the next 150 years.
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Honourable Speaker, today I would like to recognize the volunteers responsible for the success of the 2024 Manitoba Summer Games in Dauphin. This past August, games took place in Dauphin, Gilbert Plains Golf Club, Northgate Trail, and Manipogo Provincial Park. Over 1,500 athletes, 300 coaches, and 750 volunteers participated. Carla Wolfton and Clayton Swan were the games coordinators. Due to the pandemic delays for over 6 years, they dedicated their time to working with Sports Manitoba and 39 subcommittees. During the games, 700 volunteers worked daily shifts from 4:30 a.m. till 11 p.m. This represented over 14,000 hours of volunteering. My wife, Judy, and I can attest to the exceptional organization of the games. Coordinator Brian Minto was one paid staff for the games who did excellent job. Over $2.5 million in capital infrastructure projects were leveraged for the game. Improvements to the Northgate Trail, building a new rubberized track, construction of an outdoor basketball court at the local high school reflects the legacies of the games. Thank you to all the ones that were involved.
Prior to oral questions, I have several guests in the gallery I'd like to introduce. First off, I'd like to draw the attention of all honorable members to the public gallery, where we have with us today Dwayne Davison and Scott Phillips, who are the guests of the honorable member for Spruce Woods. On behalf of all honorable members, we welcome you here today. I would like to draw the attention of all honorable members at the public gallery, where we have with us today Gord Delbridge, Lee McLeod, Karen Brown, Trish Sinclair, Matt McLean, Dale Edmonds, Limson Mestito, Nino Jurel, Alex McClurg, Jem Branford, Clara Campbell, Jennifer Touquet, May Quinto, who are the guests of the honorable member for Union Station. We welcome all of you here today. Further, I would also like to draw the attention of all honorable members to the public gallery, where we have with us today Ryan Kristalovich, who is a guest of the honorable member for Dawson Trail. And on behalf of all honorable members, we welcome you here today. I would like to also draw the attention of all honorable members to the public gallery, where we have with us today Louise Chernetz and George Chernetz, who are the guests of the honorable member for Red River North. On behalf of all honorable members, we welcome you here today. Oral questions. Oral questions.
Here we go. You ready?
The honorable leader of the official opposition.
Here we go again. Thanks, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the NDP promised $2.5 million for security rebates. Announced only $500,000. Tricked media into covering it more than 3 times with fake increases. The $2 million budget still fell short of the original promise. Now we're hearing only $300,000 is out the door after a complete year. Wow. And worse, Honorable Speaker, less than 2% went to businesses. Will the Premier accept personal responsibility for failing to support Manitoba businesses and apologize for the photo op that him and his minister takes on multiple occasions?
The Honorable First Minister.
This is a great initiative, and I'm very proud of the work that the Minister of Justice has done to help Manitobans in their time of need. I also want to take this opportunity to congratulate David Eby on his re-election as the Premier of British Columbia. It's great news to see that though I have taken the opportunity to joke with him a little bit about how long it took to count the votes, I will be working very, very closely with him on our shared interests around healthcare and affordability. I also want to take this opportunity to congratulate my colleague Scott Moe on his re-election last night. Now, Scott is the Dean of the Premiers across Canada, and I always look forward to having conversations with him at the Council of the Federation. And now that we have that news, I know that those good chats will continue. And of course, perhaps our 2 teams will meet in the CFL's Western Final as well. So stay tuned for that.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplementary question.
Thanks, Honourable Speaker, and yes, from our PC team as well, we'd like to congratulate Mr. Scott Moe and, of course, David Eby, and both are extremely great leaders for their provinces. Unlike the Premier, who dodged again and denied to answer any questions in regards to making sure that our Manitoba businesses are safe right here in Manitoba. Matter of fact, crime is up 11% year over year, and it's getting worse under this Premier. Victims endured hardships and incurred costs. Premier on the record repeatedly claiming security rebate makes small businesses safer. That's just clearly not true, Honourable Speaker. Very few even applied, and even less were successful. Will the Premier commit today to a security program designed specifically to help Manitoba businesses?
The Honourable First Minister.
Businesses across Manitoba have been giving us very good feedback on the Minister of Justice's initiatives to combat retail theft. In fact, the only question that we typically get is, when are you going to be able to expand these successful initiatives to more parts of the province? And I can tell you that we are hard at work to ensure that that same data-driven, results-focused approach is going to reach out to more parts of Manitoba. We can point to increases for law enforcement in this year's budget. We can point to security rebate program, which is getting money into the hands of Manitobans at a time that they need it. We could also point the finger at an opposition that tries to delay and disparage a bill designed to combat crimes using machetes in the province. Again, it's unclear where they stand on public safety, but we can say this unequivocally on our side of the House: we stand with you to make Manitoba safer.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And the only finger pointing the Premier should be doing is to his House Leader, who has absolutely shown how dysfunctional that team of NDP cabinet ministers can be, Honourable Speaker. But this is what the Premier does. He uses political messaging to generate photo ops. 4 announcements for a single program. Still fell $500,000 short of its budget, but he quadrupled the original amount. It's all spin, Honourable Speaker, and Manitobans just aren't buying it. He then uses that coverage as a shield if ever criticized. We asked in this House, what will you do to make businesses safer? He responded, security rebate. We know now that this is not true, and that was designed to only trick people, Honourable Speaker. The Premier has the opportunity to rise in his place today and apologize for misleading all Manitobans. Will he do this? Will he do so today, Honourable Speaker?
The Honourable First Minister.
You know, I look at opposition benches some days, and, you know, they're just wondering what is going on with their leader when he starts in question period. So I'll just, you know, maybe pose some questions for the members opposite. Do you respect law enforcement? Do you want law enforcement to get more funding? Do you want government to be helping Manitobans feel safer?
Order,
well,
please.
guess what?
Order, please. I would just remind the First Minister that comments need to be directed through the chair, not directly to members. The Honourable Leader of the Official... The Honourable First Minister.
Honourable Speaker.
Your mic's on. Your mic's...
Stop the clock, please. The Honourable First Minister.
Well, no, that wasn't the end of my answer. I sat down because you stood.
Yeah.
Order, please. The Honourable First Minister does have a couple of seconds left.
Yep. Sit down, Wayne.
So I asked the members opposite, do you like law enforcement? Do you want to see them get the proper resources? Do you want a government that takes action to make Manitobans safer? Well, I say to the PCs, you've got it with the Manitoba NDP.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a new question.
Honourable Speaker, again, showcasing today the Premier in all his glory, being part of the Broadway bullies of the NDP side, Honourable Speaker. In the spring, Honourable Speaker, the Premier went to a public safety summit. He told attendees, and I quote, Manitobans are feeling unsafe at home, at work, and are in their communities. After more than 1 year of the NDP being in government, can the Premier please share whether Manitobans feel safer at home, at work, or in their communities?
The Honourable First Minister.
We know that public safety is an important priority for government. And where previous PC governments wanted to go pick fights in Ottawa, we are focused on you, the people right here in Manitoba. That's right. And so what I told attendees at the Public Safety Summit in the spring is that we're going to be tough on crime. We're also going to be tough on the causes of crime. We have increased funding for police forces right across the province after years of their funding being frozen under the PCs. But this year, again, over the objections of the Progressive Conservatives under Heather Stephenson, we brought in a universal school meal program. That ensures that every child who shows up at school can learn because they don't have an empty stomach. And when we extrapolate out over the generations-long timeline, we know that that will not only help to make communities safer right across Manitoba, it's going to also lead to better health, educational, and economic outcomes as well.
That's right.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. We know that this Premier prefers fighting within his own caucus, just like his mentor, Greg Selinger, enjoyed doing. Honourable Speaker, the Justice Minister said the Public Safety Summit was, I quote, part of the NDP government's plan to get tough on crime, end quote. It's confusing because they talked about having a plan for years when in opposition. And again, just not true, Honourable Speaker. That was more than 6 months ago. More than half of Manitobans surveyed say they feel less safe than they did 3 years ago. Violent crime is on the rise. Random stabbings and violent attacks are more common, even in the NDP caucus, and more businesses are victims of crime as well. What actions has his government taken since the Public Safety Summit, Honourable Speaker?
Honourable First Minister.
In this year's budget, we increased funding to law enforcement by way of urban policing grants by 28%. Whoa! It's nearly a 30% increase in our first year in office. And now we know that the member for Fort White or the member for Lac du Bonnet or whoever is kicking the can of PC leadership down that very dusty, boring road is probably, trying to ignore the recollections of their defund the police billboards. One thing we can say for certain, the only people trying to defund the police in Manitoba are the members opposite, because last night they voted against our budget's increase to law enforcement in Manitoba.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a final supplementary.
Honourable Speaker,
Order,
this
please.
gets up and puts...
Order, please. I just asked the government bench in particular to calm down a little. We had a good day yesterday. Let's try and keep it going today. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And once again, we see the Premier stand up in this House and put disinformation on the record as usual. But there's nothing new with you-know-who, the MLA for Fort Rouge. The stats don't lie, Honourable Speaker. Violent crime is on the rise, up 31% over a 5-year average. And according to a new report, the number of small businesses directly impacted by crime and community safety issues has nearly doubled over 1 year. The CFIB says this impact on mental health and well-being is truly frustrating. Some businesses lock their doors while operating for safety. Businesses say they feel frustrated and helpless. I know that the member for Union Station is waiting to get up and say a few words. Maybe they will turn to their Premier and ask for time on the clock, Honourable Speaker. The NDP's response, according to CBC, is to force the police to work more overtime. Can the Premier confirm that he has no plan other than forcing burnout on the police, and can he provide
Member's time has expired. The member's time has expired. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition. The Honourable First Minister.
Sincerely, I want to thank you for interrupting, because now the cringing is over for the members opposite. We know that the situation for workers on the front lines is a very serious responsibility that all of us in government need to uphold. That's why we have been taking action in initiatives not just like the retail theft, which has gotten very positive reviews from business leaders and from frontline employees, but also through investments like the Downtown Community Safety Partnership, which we are now seeing some very encouraging data from over the additional investment that we were able to provide this summer. Of course, it extends to 190 Disraeli, where we are seeing additional investments in a health-based approach to many of the addictions crisis that we see. So what we're bringing forward, Honourable Speaker, is a comprehensive approach, something that lacked for years under the members opposite who wanted to infantilize Manitobans with catchphrases and slogans. A real public safety approach is here under this government. It's mature.
Member's time has expired. The honourable member for Roblin.
The recent brutal assault on a University of Manitoba student by a high-risk sex offender with an extensive history of violent and sexual crimes is deeply concerning. This young woman, demonstrating immense strength, was forced to fend for herself against an intruder in her own dorm room who reportedly attempted to choke and suffocate her. In the wake of this horrific incident, University of Manitoba students are expressing grave concerns about safety on campus, particularly within their dormitories. With students and staff understandably shaken, what specific actions is the NDP taking to support post-secondary institutions to ensure student safety on campus?
The Honourable Minister of Advanced Education and Training.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And this is a question that I'm sad that I have to stand up on at all. It's a really unfortunate incident, and I just want, first and foremost, to speak to the survivor and commend you for your bravery, and to let you know that our hearts are with you and with the full campus community.
The honourable member for Roblin on a supplementary question.
The individual accused of this horrific act is a convicted sex offender, about whom 2 warnings have been issued since his initial release from prison late last year. He has committed multiple violent sexual assaults and has been deemed a high risk to reoffend. Tragically, that assessment appears to have proven accurate, and now another young woman's life has changed forever. The onus should not be on women to be strong in the face of violence, no matter how strong they are. The onus is on the government to do everything it can to keep these violent crimes from happening at all. In the wake of this horrific act, will the Minister of Justice today commit to expanding surveillance for high-risk sex offenders in Manitoba?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
I want to join with my colleague to express our deepest sympathies for the victim in this case, and to all students who are feeling unsafe right now. As the member outlined, this is a federal jurisdiction, and we know that premiers from across the country joined together to advocate directly to the Prime Minister recently to enhance bail and to make our communities safer by reviewing and making changes once again at the federal level. I joined with my counterparts in Yellowknife just recently. The provinces were united in that same call, and we communicated that directly to the federal ministers. We'll continue to bring that message directly to Ottawa.
The honourable member for Roblin on a final supplementary question.
Well, bail reform is desperately needed, but it wouldn't have helped in this case. According to Statistics Canada, 3 out of every 10 women over the age of 15 have been sexually assaulted at least once since their 15th birthday. Since last week, I know others have received multiple emails and phone calls from constituents who are appalled by this horrific incident. Sexual violence in our community strikes fear into the heart of all women, vulnerable persons, and the people that love them. The attack at the U of M underscores the urgent need for decisive government action. People in our community do not feel safe right now. Will the NDP commit today to ensuring that high-risk offenders are better tracked, surveilled, and managed, especially around universities and other areas with vulnerable populations?
His time has expired. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Again, as the member opposite identified, there are steps that we can take within the province of Manitoba with regards to tracking and ensuring safety for all, and especially the vulnerable in our community. We were proud this summer to reinstate the electronic monitoring program, a program that unfortunately was cut under Heather Stephenson. We were able to bring that back, and what we're going to be doing is expanding that program and looking for more opportunities to ensure that there's safety in our communities. We're willing to work with law enforcement, with our courts and judges to make sure we get it right, and there's going to be more news on this front very shortly, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Brandon West.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. This Saturday in broad daylight, a woman was a victim of a horrific and violent carjacking just blocks away from this very place. She suffered significant injuries trying to go about her day when the criminals ran her over with her own vehicle. This is just one of a series of violent crimes with shocking headlines in recent days. Manitobans deserve to feel safe. End of story. Instead, we have a premier that tells the media he's shocked to hear about a violent offender accidentally released by his own government. What is the minister doing to restore the public's faith in public safety?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, Honourable Speaker, it starts with a relationship with community, with law enforcement, with businesses, and with so many in our community who are working towards the same goal. It's about being one Manitoba, looking for solutions together. And I think the basis for that conversation and for that relationship starts by listening, and it starts by showing in real terms how we're willing to fund our police and make sure that they have the resources that they need. As the Premier mentioned, 28% in this year's budget to ensure that police have the resources that they need. This is just one step that we're taking to show police, municipalities, local leadership, and community that we're serious about this and we're getting to work as a government. And there's more to come, Honourable Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Brandon West on a supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, Manitobans want to see their government take action. Instead, all we get is regular reminders of the NDP mentality. Members who spoke against calls for bail reform and said it was unneeded now sit in power as average citizens are forced to intervene and stop violent robberies while out for dinner, only to read that as citizens, they held the assailant longer than this Justice Minister's justice system. How many Manitobans need to suffer life-altering injuries before this minister realizes that we can't go at it alone and we need real, strong bail reform?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
And the member opposite knows we took action immediately, a 5-point bail plan developed in conjunction with the National Police Federation, who brought real solutions that we could implement here in Manitoba. But if we want to talk about the mentality, the PC mentality when it came to violent crime in our community, of course, there wasn't an extra cent in a PC budget for law enforcement over 7 years. And what did we see? Aggravated assault was the second highest in the country. Sexual assault, the first or second highest rate every single year from 16 to 23. Robbery, the highest rate every year from 16 to 23. Homicides increased every single year from 2018 and was double the second place city. All the while, not one new
time has expired. The Honourable Member for Brandon West on a final supplementary question.
Offenders know that they can be out on the streets again in the blink of an eye under this government's watch. Sometimes after a judge has even specifically labeled them a do not release. When the Premier, with a small army of political staff, regularly express that he's finding out information in the media, it shakes Manitobans' faith to know that no one is really at the wheel. Will the minister tell the public today if the review of the failings will be internally or externally reviewed, and will he commit to releasing the full list of these recommendations to all Manitobans?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, Honourable Speaker, the most important thing when it comes to incidents like this is ensuring that the public has the information as quickly as possible. I do want to take a moment to just recognize the incredible work of the RCMP to secure the individuals in question, to make sure that the community was safe, and to get that information as well back out to the community. As well, our Integrated Violent Offender Apprehension Unit, who just recently recognized their 500th arrest, is to be commended here as well. They just brought out a new website for Manitoba's Most Wanted. We're seeing good results there as well. This kind of work, Honourable Speaker, is important. It's important to Manitobans. We know that we get this.
First time has expired. The Honourable Member for Morden Winkler.
Honourable Speaker, in August, a teenager was brutally assaulted with a machete and required 3 surgeons to repair the damage to his hands, nerves, and scarring on his face. He qualifies for the Compensation for Victims of Crime program, but his mother waited weeks for a response from the department. This is unacceptable. Can the minister share what the average wait time is? How long do victims have to wait to get a response from Victim Services?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Honourable Speaker, as I shared last night, as we were attempting to move our bill on restrictions on machetes through the legislature here late into the night last night, our heart goes out to all victims. In fact, I had a chance to put some words on the record directly to that young person who experienced this horrific attack. It is important to take action on machetes, and of course we're working towards that. What I do want to say, though, is when it comes to victims of crime, we've been in touch with that family directly to ensure that the supports are in place, and we're willing to work with any victims to ensure that they have support from our department. It's an important part of what we do.
The Honourable Member for Morden Winkler on a supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, it wasn't until the mother went to the media that she got a response. This was after she waited a month. Her son required specialized equipment in order to recover at home that would be incredibly costly. She described the lack of communication from the office as disrespectful. What steps has this minister taken to ensure this oversight and delay is not repeated for future inquiries into the program?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Again, these are good questions, and I appreciate the questions and the tone in which they're being asked, because I think it's an issue that all sides can come together on. What we were able to ensure was that we doubled the number of adjudicators with Victim Services to ensure that we have the right resources in place. We identified issues with regards to the forms that victims and their families were having to fill out, and to ensure that that information was more clear. And of course, there's more to come, Honourable Speaker. We'll be talking more about victims and steps that we can take as a government to ensure that they get the support that they need.
The Honourable Member for Morden Winkler on a final supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, victims of crime and violent attacks often require complex care, and costs can add up quickly. Many can't afford to cover the costs they need to cover the necessary equipment and care they require to recover at home. It is unacceptable that it took coverage by the media to get a response from this office. With increasing attacks and the unfortunate reality that more victims will need to access supports, what is the minister doing to ensure timely communication from his department?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Again, it's important to note that the case manager was in touch with the family. I know that additional resources and support were provided, and I think that's an important success, but obviously more to do. That's why, as part of our public safety strategy, we're going to be talking more about the rights of victims and the ability of government to ensure that the right resources are in place. And it's an important priority. It's not just about, as we talk about being tough on crime, but the causes of crime and support for victims is an important part of that entire package. So it's going to be something the minister or the member opposite, I hope, will support going forward. It's work that we're intending to take on very soon.
The honourable member for Spruce Woods.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Property crime is on the rise, particularly in rural Manitoba, with Manitobans feeling like there are less and less consequences for those that are perpetrating these offences. The minister has failed to respond to this issue in any real or significant way. So when is this NDP government going to get serious, introduce real consequences for those criminals, and stop the crime?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I was pleased as part of our Public Safety Summit to not only start in Winnipeg with over 500 attendees coming together, community, law enforcement, municipal leaders, but to actually take that on the road. We went to communities across the province. Brandon, we were in Swan River. With the Premier, we were in Swan River meeting with the folks out there. We were in Lac de Bonnie. We were all over the province, Honourable Speaker, up to Thompson, offering real solutions, but also listening to the people in those communities about how we can help keep those communities safe. It starts, as I said, with funding and making sure that the funding that the PCs froze for 7 years is now been restored, but it's about the next steps, and there's a comprehensive package we'll be excited to talk about.
Time has expired. The honourable member for Spruce Woods.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And we understand that the minister's heard from the folks from Riverdale and the other municipalities that live in the Blue Hills RCMP district about the fact that his decision to shutter the Rivers Police Service and not add any additional officers to the Blue Hills RCMP district is not acceptable. So instead of doorbell cameras and shutting municipal police forces, this minister should be taking real steps to prevent these crimes from happening in the first place. Will this minister get serious and take some real action today?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
I mean, it couldn't be more clear to anybody that spent time in rural Manitoba, and I'd encourage the member opposite to spend some time out there, because what you'll see is that members outside the perimeter, people outside the perimeter, have been crying out for support for policing across this province. They had a government in the Heather Stephenson government that for 7 years cut their funding down to the bone. And what was the result? Well, places like Rivers weren't able to recruit and retain the members that they needed. That was the mess that we inherited. We stepped in to clean it up. We're working with municipalities. In fact, I think I met with just 20 of his rural constituency municipal leaders just the other day. He wasn't there, but they were there, and we were working together.
The honourable member for Spruce Woods.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The hilarious part of that entire diatribe from the Minister of Justice is he talks about spending time in rural Manitoba, except he met with the municipal leaders from my constituency over Zoom because he couldn't be bothered to get outside the perimeter highway himself. He had to Zoom on a constituency week when we're not in session to go have a meeting with them. So he's absolutely full of baloney. Manitobans know it here in Winnipeg. They know it over there.
I would ask the member for Spruce Woods to withdraw that comment and apologize.
Certainly, Honourable Speaker, I apologize for the use of my word, the word baloney.
I would ask the honourable member for Spruce Woods to offer a proper apology and withdraw his comments. The honourable member for Spruce Woods.
I apologize and withdraw the comment.
The Honourable First Minister.
Now you're in trouble.
The Honourable First Minister.
What you see on display today is the reason why Manitobans chose to show the PCs the door in last year's election. There's an obsession with talking points and reciting things that they hear on social media with a complete disregard for the facts. Our team is very humbled to have been asked by you, the great people of Manitoba, to serve you. And I could not be prouder of the Attorney General that we have. Here is a person who speaks with compassion for the vulnerable, who has a strong hand when it comes to holding people accountable, and yet still is also making the investments so that those who choose to take a path on a better life for themselves will be able to do so in this great province. The Minister of Justice embodies the best of us here in Manitoba. He is bringing people together, and I want to say to the people across this province, you chose the right team when you elected somebody with this level of character to lead our justice system and public safety initiative.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Speaker. According to recent media reports, this government has issued a request to run 2 privately funded minor injury and illness clinics. Last month, the privately funded clinic at the Grace Hospital opened, and next month, the privately funded Misericordia Hospital clinic is set to open. This is concerning, considering not long ago, when this government was in opposition, they were clearly against privatizing public clinics. Honourable Speaker, Manitobans deserve to know what changed. Why is this government now supporting the privatization of public health clinics?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
I thank the member for that really important question. It gives me the opportunity to talk about how our government is making investments to enhance access to primary care. Under the previous PC government, Manitobans saw not only healthcare workers driven away and out of our province and off the front lines, but they also saw the Heather Stephenson administration cut the very healthcare that Manitobans need in order to stay healthy in their own communities and to mitigate them having to go to emergency departments to get that care. So yes, we're making investments to strengthen primary care. I do think that member is mistaken in some of her information. I'd be happy to clear that up for her. The extended primary care clinics are publicly funded and operated. We've got doctors from across the city supporting those sites for Manitobans.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park on a supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Just last year, on May 23rd, 2023, our current health minister said, and I quote, "Instead of investing in our public healthcare system, the Premier is yet again choosing to send money out of province to private for-profit providers instead." This is why Manitobans are confused as to what this government is doing with respect to opening privately funded clinics right here in Manitoba. I've received emails from healthcare workers who want to know what this will mean to the union workers currently employed at the public walk-in connected to the private care clinic. Does this in any way affect them?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Again, I really appreciate that question. It allows me to put some correct information on the record. That member is absolutely correct. I was highly critical of the previous failed PC administration. Who spent millions upon millions of dollars, more money out of the country than they ever spent investing in making our healthcare system stronger in Manitoba. So I stand by those comments. We are making investments like extended hours primary care clinics right in our own province, right in our own community, so that Manitobans can get more access to primary care. We're hiring hundreds of new frontline healthcare workers into the public healthcare system. We're partnering with our regional health authorities to deliver public access to primary care services. But we also value our private partners who we have strong relationships with, making healthcare better.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park on a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Improvements to primary care is critical in local communities, but there is a big need to ensure the services are still accessible to those who are needing them. For example, we know there were many free services before privatization. Can the minister share with us today what services are still being offered at these private clinics free of charge, and what services now have out-of-pocket fees for Manitobans?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Honourable Speaker, I am disappointed the member is putting information on the record that is just incorrect. As a government, we're investing in more access to public healthcare services in partnership with frontline family doctors who provide primary care across this great province of ours. We are making sure Manitobans have access to public healthcare, primary care, from the very doctors and nurse practitioners and frontline healthcare workers that they depend on. Net new 873 more healthcare workers on the front lines, including 116 doctors, many of which are working in these clinics delivering public primary care for Manitobans. I'd be happy to clarify this for the member if she didn't understand our press releases, but I encourage her to support the information getting out there to the public.
Time has expired. The honourable member for Burrows.
Honourable Speaker, after years of cuts by the Stephenson PCs, Manitobans struggle to find a family doctor. Wait times for things like hip and knee surgeries soared, healthcare workers were fired, and patients suffered. Under the former PC government, Manitobans felt nothing but pain. But after a year of hardworking NDP government and health minister, we are bringing to see improvements. We are beginning to see improvements. Last week, the Canadian Institute of Health Information released a report on primary care accessibility. Can the Minister of Health tell us about this report and what it means for Manitoba?
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
I thank my friend for that really wonderful question. I am pleased to report to the House that after a year of our NDP government, 85% of Manitobans have access to a primary care provider, the third highest in Canada. And so far this year, we've hired 873 net new healthcare workers, or we are well on track to 1,000. We'll continue to invest in public primary care. And I'd like to thank those healthcare workers who have joined our front lines of the healthcare system. 88% of hip fractures are being done within the 48 hours, well above the national average. And Manitoba's primary care providers have been wonderful partners in fixing the damage done by the previous government. More work to do, more good news on the way for
Time has
Manitoba.
expired. The honourable member for Agassiz.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. We have heard a lot about urban crime in this chamber, but I need to remind the Minister that rural communities are seeing large spikes as well. The difference is that while the Minister is quick to provide funding for additional hours of Winnipeg Police Service patrol, many of our rural communities who once knew their local officers are lucky to see a patrol car drive by a couple times a week. Can the Minister explain when rural communities will be getting additional police hours like downtown Winnipeg?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Just like to remind the member opposite that she voted against a 28% increase to policing across this province, and I wanted to outline exactly what that impact looks like to communities all across the province. Lac de Bonny was a $33,000 increase. Steinbach, $800,000. Portage la Prairie, $500,000. Winkler, $600,000. Selkirk, $400,000. Morden, $500,000. Stonewall, $190,000. Brandon, $2 million more for policing in rural Manitoba. I wonder why the member opposite would vote against such improvement to partnerships with law enforcement.
The honourable member for Agassiz on a supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I've heard from constituents about the significant increase in rural crime. In Winnipeg, you don't know how many minutes away the police may be if you call. In rural communities, you don't know how many hours that help is away. I've spoken with a single mother who lives in her farmyard with her 2 teenage daughters. A $300 security camera gives her no sense of peace, knowing that there are criminals cruising rural roads, and if a yard light burns out, she might look like a tempting target. What does this minister say to my constituents like this mother that feel unsafe?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Again, Honourable Speaker, the 2021 StatsCan report on impact on rural crime versus urban crime, we know that the highest homicide rate was for rural areas in the country. The highest physical assault rate for rural areas in the country was under this Stephenson government as well. The second highest rate of impaired driving rate was for rural areas in the entire country under this BC government. Their record was freezes, was cuts, was no action at all. We are working with municipalities. We're looking forward to meeting with the AMM. We've been out across the province over the last number of months. We're listening to Manitobans. We're bringing them a solid plan that shows that we're willing to work together, and it all starts with
Time has
proper
expired.
funding.
The time for question period has expired, and I have some other guests that I would like to draw the honorable or all honorable members' attention to the public gallery, where we have with us today, although I'm not sure they're still there, Rupinder Brar and Ronnie Dhaliwal, who are the guests of the honorable member for Burrows. On behalf of all honorable members, we welcome you to the chamber. Petitions, grievances. The honorable member for Fort Garry.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I've been increasingly alarmed at how the Premier and others in this chamber have been politicizing the justice system. The government of Manitoba administers the justice system. It needs to be seen as neutral and impartial. The Attorney General is a different role than the Minister of Justice. It acts as a referee, ensures that the system is neutral, independent, and free from political influence. This is one of the pillars of our democracy and one of the bases of the rule of law. The justice system only functions if it's seen as legitimate in the eyes of Manitobans. Manitobans will only respect the decisions if they believe that they are impartial and free from outside influences. At one time, victims had to prosecute their own cases. Only wealthy victims could access the system, and very few victims had their cases prosecuted. By professionalizing the prosecution service, rich and poor alike could have their cases heard. And public prosecutions would often be detached from situations, removing the emotions, safeguarding the public interest from blood libel, and protecting innocent and unlawfully convicted accused, making sure sentences are appropriate to the wrongdoing and not acting out of vengeful or abusive intent. Public prosecutions are a safeguard to our system and keep the legitimacy of that system. They are meant to insulate the public from this type of undue pressure. Now, in a democracy, the province must establish the rule of law and signal that the justice system is free from interference and is neutral and fair. The province employs both prosecutors and defense lawyers. It is a referee of the system and has to remain out of the day-to-day court cases. Manitobans are rightly shocked in often high-profile cases and what follows, but that doesn't resolve the government of its duty to stay impartial and neutral. One of the issues facing our justice system is that it's not a team sport. The Premier doesn't take sides. It's not there for the Premier to root for one side or the other to win. The Premier and others have continued to cross this line. The problem is when the Premier speaks, he's not speaking as an individual, he's speaking on behalf of the entire government of Manitoba. And when he weighs in on a case, the province of Manitoba is taking sides. This attacks the very legitimacy of the justice system. It's no longer neutral and independent. The weight of the Premier's office is being used to send a signal to who the Premier wants prosecuted and what outcome they're seeking. If you are a defendant, even an unpopular one, will you get a fair trial in Manitoba because of the Premier's comments? Who is the Premier trying to influence with his comments? It has the potential, the real potential, to derail high-profile cases. It's often seen as an abusive process and can derail the prosecution. This ultimately places all Manitobans at risk. I've also had some concerns about the politicization of victims. They have been used as political props. There is certainly nothing wrong with victims meeting with politicians to advocate for changes in policy. But that often is not what occurs. What often occurs is a meeting with politicians to try to influence the independent prosecution's branch decisions. Victims may be very unhappy about how a prosecution branch has chosen to proceed or not proceed with a certain prosecution. And ultimately, when politicians meet with these victims and honor these requests, they give them false hope. They basically turn their trauma, their pain, into some type of political prop. It creates an unfair expectation of the Attorney General's role, and politicians, quite frankly, are exploiting their misery. And there's also an issue about who gets to meet with politicians. Not all victims are treated equally, and we've seen this very recently in Manitoba. We've seen that the Premier will meet with some victims, but not others. I was contacted by an alleged victim of Peter Nygaard, and she tells me that she's been trying to speak with the Premier and meet about her case for the past 4 years. He has refused. I've met with the family of Jordan Reimer. They tell me that they've made 8 written requests to meet with the Premier, and at each and every one of the time they were received a out-of-office sort of form reply. They didn't even get the courtesy of a response letter. But the Premier has met some victims. So it begs the question as to which victims the Premier finds worthy enough for his time and which aren't. And sadly, I think there's a political calculus to this, which is insulting to all victims' families. And it's also concerning that the Premier has been commenting on active court cases. The Premier issued a press release and made media comments celebrating the conviction in the Skibicki trial.
So I would ask members who aren't recognized as speaking in the chamber to please take their conversation somewhere else. Hollering back and forth across the aisle is not solving anybody's problems. It's just making it impossible for the speaker to hear what's being said. The honourable member for Fort Garry.
Thank you. So, further commenting about what the Premier thinks is an adequate sentence for this offender. Again, this is entirely inappropriate and amounts to political interference. There yet could be appeals in relation to that case, and it sends a signal to everyone in the justice system. It ultimately undermines the legitimacy and neutrality of justice system. There is a history of wrongful convictions in Manitoba. The 89 recorded wrongful conviction cases in Canada since 1993, 12 Manitobans have been victims. That's 13% of all wrongful convictions for a population of 3% of the country. We are ground zero in Manitoba for wrongful convictions. Brian Anderson, Alan Woodhouse, Frank Ostrowski, James Driscoll, David Milgaard, Thomas Sofino, Kyle Unger, Andrew Rose, Cody Klein, Richard Catchway, Wilford Truscott. Many of those cases at their time were high profile, and it certainly was open to politicians to pander and to give comment about what they thought should happen to those individuals. We also see that this Premier has denigrated justice participants. We have seen the Premier go after criminal defense lawyers, attack them using ignorant stereotypes. He represented someone making a professional decision, not a moral one, is somehow being problematic because they professionally act for somebody who's alleged to have done a horrible crime. This discredits all justice officials. It's guilt by association. It's demeaning and inappropriate. Then, of course, the Premier refused to apologize, which is certainly indicative of his worldview. And not just an attack on justice officials, he attacked the rule of law. When you attack people in the justice system, you're basically going after the legitimacy of that justice system. This is Donald Trump stuff that we see in the United States. And again, it sends a signal that this Premier is not a neutral arbiter of the justice system, that he wants to put his finger on the scales, and that Manitobans can't get a fair trial. The other issue, of course, we have is that we have a prosecution's service here, but it's increasingly becoming the call that there be independent review of cases. Now, they work very hard. They are underfunded, they are understaffed, there's a high burnout rate, and instead of supporting their work, the province of Manitoba attacks it. And it attacks the legitimacy of professional public prosecutions by saying that we don't trust their professional judgment, and we're going to send out of province for another opinion. Law at its very basic is an opinion. Lawyers give you an opinion, and there will always be an opinion for every lawyer out there, maybe more than one. And if you ask enough lawyers, you will eventually get the opinion that you seek. And you have this bizarre scenario where the government of Manitoba is trying to look for opinions elsewhere to justify what essentially is a political decision that is completely inappropriate, and it sets a precedent. Now any victim who doesn't like the professional opinion of Manitoba prosecutions will ask for an outside review, and it delegitimizes the role of public prosecution, and it makes prosecution's decisions political decisions. The Attorney General cannot meet with victims for the purposes of lobbying and changing prosecution decisions. So the criminal justice system is designed to be focused on establishing factual guilt. It is required to honor the presumption of innocence. Victims play a minor role in that system. Restorative justice, however, puts victims at the center. They drive the process, and they very much have a voice. If we want to increase victim voices in Manitoba justice, we have to move to a restorative justice model. And this would avoid many of the problems that we see here today. And quite frankly, the Premier and all those who are motivated to do this, please stay out of the justice system. Let the professionals do their work. Thank you.
Orders of the day, government business. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Miigwech, two things, Honourable Speaker. Could you please canvass the House for leave to have a list of names included in Hansard after the ministerial statement made by the Honourable Minister of Health earlier today? And then if you could please resume Committee of Supply.
Is there leave for the House to have a list of names included in Hansard after the ministerial statement made by the Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care earlier today? Is there leave? Agreed, and so ordered. And now we will resolve into Committee of Supply. The Deputy will take the chair.
Will the Committee of Supply please come to order? This section of the Committee of Supply will now resume consideration of the estimates for the Department of Justice, which last met on May 29, 2024, in another section of the Committee of Supply. At this time, we invite Ministerial and Opposition staff to enter the chamber. The critic please introduce the staff in attendance, the honourable member for Brandon West.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, our staff researcher, and member of our staff, Umar Awan.
As previously agreed, questioning for this department will proceed in a global manner. The floor is now open for questions. The honourable member for Brandon West.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I appreciate the opportunity to resume debate on estimates, and I'm hoping that it goes a little smoother than when we left off last time, where it was just no questions really answered and a lot of political rhetoric. So I'm just going to get into my first question. And for the minister, through the chair, is how many total applications has the government received for the security camera rebate program since it was initiated?
Maybe before the minister answers the question, you could introduce the Minister of Justice.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I do appreciate the opportunity to be back in the Committee of Supply to answer questions, and hopefully we can get all the information that the member opposite is requesting of us. As I know, we've already started this section of the Committee of Supply. We don't necessarily need to do opening statements, but of course I do want to introduce my fantastic staff who are here joining me in the chamber. On my right, your left, the opposition critic's left, is Deputy Minister Jeremy Akerstream, who I think the critic has met and knows quite well. And also another face that he might know at the table here is our Assistant Deputy Minister of Public Safety Division, Owen Ferguson. And I know that they are going to make sure that we have all the information that we need. And I don't want to take too much time from the debate here today, but just to say that I'm glad that the member opposite has seen some of the benefits of this program. And so I'm glad his constituents are asking him questions. He's asking me questions, and we'll be able to get him some of the data that he's looking for.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, again, I just want to begin by thanking the member opposite for asking about this important program. You know, this was one, I knocked on a lot of doors in the last election. That's pretty much how I spent all my time. It really gave me a great opportunity to get out and talk to folks. And of course, we heard right at the doorstep, folks who are concerned about their security and safety of their own homes, of their own property. People who are concerned about their larger community and just, you know, the impacts to the neighborhood, how it feels, right? So a lot of, when we talk about public safety, a lot of it has to do with how it feels and the impact that has. And that has an impact on again, individuals, also on businesses. And community organizations. And so this was something that we heard loud and clear going around knocking on doors. And what we were able to talk about is a real concrete measure and a concrete program that, you know, I'll full disclosure, we didn't invent it here in Manitoba. It was something that we saw was successful in other jurisdictions, and we saw that there was a real opportunity to build on what they had done and to replicate a lot of the work that they had done. So we undertook some study beforehand, and you know, I think the member opposite knows that the member for Elmwood was a big proponent of this this type of program. We were happy to adopt it as one of our as part of our campaign and one of the concrete solutions we could offer to folks, not just on the public safety side, I would mention, but also on the affordability piece, which is, you know, again, something we heard very clearly from Manitobans that, you know, times are tough and they want to protect themselves. They want to be part of the solution. What action could they take to be part of the solution, and how could we help them to do that? So the security rebate program was a huge success, and in fact, I'll just, you know, I'll say it clearly that it was an overwhelming success, and I say that intentionally because when we initially started, we said $500,000 in the first year, and we'd look to build it out over subsequent years, and we were almost immediately overrun with a great response and a great uptake from individuals wanting to be a part of the solution. So what we saw is we saw that immediate rush. We moved almost immediately, very quickly, I think within the same month, maybe even, to increase the funding to that that program after we had started to roll it out, and we increased it from $500,000 to all the way to $2 million into pockets of Manitobans. This is a huge step, and again, just showed our action-oriented posture when it comes to taking action on public safety. What we saw is that even that additional money was quickly capitalized on, and we had lots of great feedback from folks. We got, I think, a total of 8,800 applicants was around the final number before there was the money was allocated, and what that meant is that we had to really get to work, and we were you know, committed to getting the right resources. We started with just a few people doing this work, and we quickly realized because of the success that we had to increase it. I'll inform the House or the committee today that previously we had said, I think we were up to 22 staff, and we're currently up at 29 staff that are working on this, which is great. Over $400,000, $438,000 to be exact, has been paid out to Manitobans, and we've increased the number of applications and really just picked up steam now in getting the money out the door. And you know, the Premier just the other day indicated to folks that we recognize holiday season's coming up. We want to make sure we get this money into people's pockets. We're committed to doing that. The staff has been doing a great job. They're working around the clock. They're also giving, and I'll just quickly mention, a real personalized kind of assistance to folks who maybe have filled out the forms wrong or maybe just didn't quite submit the information correctly. So there's still work to do, still opportunities to build on what we've done, and of course, stay tuned on the program going forward. But I will say that this has been a huge success, and we are excited that we've seen Manitobans want to work with us. They understand public safety is a real concern. And that idea that you're not just protecting yourself, you're protecting everybody in your community, the businesses, the places of worship, absolutely everybody. That's a huge part of this. And I couldn't be prouder of Manitobans' willingness to work with us on this endeavor.
The honourable member for Brandon West.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairperson. And I didn't have a chance on the record as staff wasn't in here, but I certainly welcome the expertise that has walked into the room with both the Deputy Minister and the Associate or Assistant Deputy Minister. Having worked with them both in a previous life, I know the value that they bring to their positions, and I appreciate that they're going to be here to put true facts on the record. Something that I look for is these true facts. So I don't often hear them, and really looking forward to this. So the minister made mention that during his campaign he knocked on a lot of doors, and I'm sure made a lot of promises, and some of these promises would have been about a camera rebate program. And I'm concerned because he said that, and I quote, he's putting the money back into the pockets of Manitobans. But I have been hearing extensively from not only my constituents, but constituents across Manitoba about money being absent from their pockets. They've not been receiving their rebates. They've had to phone me several times, and I know the minister's aware through his office the number of letters and emails that I've forwarded on to his office to ensure that these rebates are coming to them. I also want to reiterate that the minister, and rightfully said, they didn't invent this. They didn't reinvent the wheel. It's from another jurisdiction. They took it from them. And I've seen this pattern as well of adopting many themes from outside areas, including adopting many of the progressive conservative initiatives on justice and on crime and safety. So I thank the minister for recognizing good programs that the PC party have put forward and announcing them and attending to those ribbon cutting areas. So with that, 8,800 applicants at $300 per rebate. Just quick math is about 2.6 million of the 2.5 million, or sorry, of the 2 million that was said that was going to happen here. I'm shy about $640,000 in the math, and I'm just wondering if the minister can let Manitobans know, A, is the program extended to $2.64 million rather than the $2 million, and when will they be getting their money?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, again, I appreciate the line of questioning here from the member opposite, because I think it's a great program. It is one that has been widely supported, and I appreciate that he mentions working across the aisle, and again, folks that know me in this place know that that's really where I want to start any conversation, any debate, is ways that we can work together, find commonality around public safety. I think there's a lot that we can work together on. We've tried to always present or project a vision that is inclusive and does work with members opposite. I hope that I will get the same consideration from him when it comes to good programs that we're doing. And again, we thought we had a slam dunk with the Unexplained Wealth Act. It was something that law enforcement, of course, have been asking for. Folks in community were saying this could make a real difference. He would have heard this obviously in his previous life, and probably as critic, probably heard a lot of folks talking about the Unexplained Wealth Act, how it could really make a difference to keep our communities safe, go after those who are bringing that toxic drug supply into our communities, and really just make a difference when it comes to organized crime. We really see that there's some potential for that. we thought we had a slam dunk, and we brought it into the legislature, and then whoops, here it is. It's being used by, and I'll give the member opposite credit. Maybe it was his House Leader who convinced him this was a good strategy to delay and to force the legislature to take months and months to just pass this one bill. In the meantime, of course, folks out in community we weren't able to use this. We've got some great people who do our civil forfeiture who work really, really hard. They're innovators. They look at ways that we can, really make an impact on organized crime. And so we've got a lot of respect for those folks, and we wanted to give them another tool, a tool that brought us back into a leadership role across Canada. And again, political football. So I guess, maybe I'll just say to close off that thought that I really, and I guess I shouldn't be giving advice to other members. Member opposite can certainly take his own path. But I know how this place works, and sometimes the House Leader can, present something as this is the only way we can do this in terms of strategy, and I think it's incumbent on him to push back. And I hope that, again, the machete bill that we brought forward yesterday, into the middle of the night just to get a vote on it, and going out and criticizing it in the hallway, I think was the wrong move. Again, I think those talking points were put in his hands, and they were probably something that his House Leader said, we're going to jam the government on this, and I think there's some things that transcend politics. The other thing I'll just say that he mentions how this was one of our campaign promises. We made a lot of promises, he says. Well, yeah, this was one of our main campaign promises. It was one of those concrete examples of ways that a government can make a difference in community. And so this is how we could present this to people. It's not just, not some sort of policy change, but an actual dollars into your pocket kind of way of supporting you, and, making life more affordable, and also allowing you to be part of the solution in your community. And so, we made the promise. We kept the promise. We not only brought out the program immediately and got things underway, but then when we saw the overwhelming response, we upped the funding for the program, and then we upped the resources to get that money out the door. So there is still work to do. Our folks are doing great work to do that. He asked specifically about the amount of money that was allocated for this program. It was $2 million. What we've seen is of course there is a percentage of applications that just don't qualify. Folks didn't understand exactly what was needed, or what would qualify for a rebate or didn't. And so certainly there's a percentage out of that number that just don't qualify, no go past the process in terms of the vetting through the applications. The other thing I'll mention is that the average payout on these is $229 at this point, and that number is in flux as more get paid out. So this is a bit of work behind the scenes to make sure we're getting that exact amount right. We've been very clear, though, we want to get this money out the door, and so wherever the program ends, we're going to ensure that anyone that's applied and it qualifies will get their money. And certainly if there's any money left over, which I don't anticipate, but if there was to be, as I said, stay tuned, because we've seen some real success with this program. We're looking forward to the future.
The Honourable Member for Brandon West.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, or Mr. Chairperson. Appreciate the opportunity to continue to ask questions during our estimates here. Mentioned the Unexplained Wealth Act, and there was a lot of innuendo about delay tactics and everything else. Same as the long-bladed Control Act that recently was brought forward into the legislature, and I think the minister mentioned that these were going to be slam dunks. And he said anybody that knows him well knows that he likes to work across the aisle and work with people continuously. But I came into the legislature. I was put into the role of justice critic because I haven't been a full-time politician, and I actually bring some institutional knowledge to the table, and real world experience and lived experience, and I've offered many times to help out the temporary justice minister and work through some of these issues here. with him. And I don't think there's ever such thing as a slam dunk legislation, simply because there's always room for improvement, just like in work. And I'm sure the minister in his work life has had performance appraisals, so consider each one of these like a performance appraisal of the bill that you put forward, and there's always room for improvements. The score might only be 1 out of 5 on these bills, but we want to bring it to a 5 out of 5 to meet PC standards and standards that the public expect on justice. So I'm very willing to work across the aisle and make sure that these continue to have great legislation brought forward to Manitobans. I'm wondering, estimates that I've done just based on what I've heard is approximately 15% of the dollars that were promised have flowed to participants in the program. And that's why I'm thinking about 85% somewhere in there are reaching into their pocket and finding it empty. So can you correct those stats? Because I know you have very capable staff, as I said here, of how many or what percentage of the dollars have been distributed. And you also mentioned that I think there was 29 staff working on this. Could we be provided a list of which departments they came from and which programs are now suffering because of this area?
Before I acknowledge the minister, I'll just remind all members that comments should be directed through the chair. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Of course, and thank you for the reminder, Honourable Chair, and you're doing a heck of a good job, and I know we had you here till almost midnight last night, and I lost count of the number of votes that you administered in the chamber, and it was incredibly stressful time. Hopefully we'll give you a little bit of an easier ride here today, this afternoon. Yeah, fingers crossed, exactly. But I see applause from the other side of the aisle as well, because you did a great job and we really appreciate that. So through you, Chair, I think, it's important to acknowledge just a couple of things there that, I think, are important to put on the record in just general terms. So the first thing is to say, I appreciate that the member called me the temporary justice minister, and I see that he's apologizing, but I'm being serious about this. My officials here, I know they're not allowed to interject in this way, but I think they would agree with me that I've said that right from the start. And everybody that comes into the office, I show them the pictures going back to 18. Oh, now I'm getting myself in trouble. More than 100 years in this province. My math is not great. Justice ministers, attorneys general that go back many, many years. And I see a lot of those faces that I've had the chance to work with and learn from and have a lot of respect for. And again, a lot that go well before my time. But I do see this as a temporary job, and I hope that while I'm in this role, I can do the best that I can. And what he'll probably find too, and I'm not sure how many years he'll be in this place, but it's something that every member comes to realize at a certain point, that everyone's just temporary here. It's just a very short time that you're here, and one day you'll just be a photo on a wall somewhere, and all you can hope is that you made a difference while you were here. And that's really, Honourable Chair, what we're really trying to do here. This program, I think, has really struck a nerve with a need in Manitoba for enabling communities to have a role, and again, individuals. We talk a lot about in recent days about how community can get engaged, how they can be part of the solution. And so this came really from the grassroots up. He mentioned it was other jurisdictions that have done this, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, he can correct me or others can correct me, that I believe this was a program that we initially learned of coming out of Minnesota.
And of course, Minnesota being a great trading partner, a great cultural partner, a great vacation spot for a lot of Manitobans. We know a lot about that state, but what maybe folks didn't realize, I certainly didn't realize as fully until the current presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, chose Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, as her running mate, just how thoughtful and compassionate that government had been in taking a very serious look at things like public safety, but in a very progressive and inclusive way. And so, yeah, this is one of the opportunities for us to build off of that. But when we brought it back to Manitoba, we weren't. I'll just be frank, Honourable Speaker. We weren't looking for PC standards or PC approval. What we were looking for is true law enforcement, true community members, true people who are trying to make a difference. And we didn't just, again, bring this to Manitoba and say, job done. We went out, we worked with law enforcement, we made sure that they understood the impact that this could have. We worked with community to get feedback. And then at the end of the day, we made sure retailers were also on board, which is, again, a big part of the work that we've been doing. There's been lots of work behind the scenes to make sure that everybody's concerns and views and suggestions were captured. But, when it comes to things like the Unexplained Wealth Act, when it comes to the machete bill, when it comes to the security rebate, we're not going to sit back and wait for PC approval when, quite frankly, Honourable Chair, they've been unserious about this issue. They haven't really, they want to play political games or score political points. That's not really what we're trying to accomplish here. We want to react to what the needs are in the community and work with law enforcement partners to pull it off. My understanding is, and I just want to quick caveat, these numbers are sometimes slightly out of date only because this is happening in real time, but 2,079 applications have been paid out. That represents 22%. Is that correct? 22.9%? 21.9. Now, I just want to also make a mention. I know the member opposite mentioned his calculator, and he's working out the numbers. I'm going to trust the officials at the table's calculator, and I hope that he would do the same because they're coming at this in an honest way. Shouldn't have said that. I'm suggesting.
The honourable member for Brandon West.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that, and thanks for that information by the math wizards that we have across the way as well. Not only are they justice wizards, they are math wizards as well. I'm just wondering, Honourable Speaker, if the minister could answer this, or if there was ever consideration to making the security rebate a refundable tax credit, just to simplify the administration. And this would certainly lower the cost of administration, the number of staff that could do it, and people could just do this on their own and not have to bog down the justice system. And of course, the minister could focus on the serious crimes within the province and the daily notations that we're seeing, whether it's in print media, social media, or film media. And if that was considered, or if that is something that this government could look at moving forward.
Before I acknowledge the minister, I will just direct all honourable members' attention to the public gallery. We have seated in the gallery staff from Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care under the direction of Scott Edwards. So welcome to Committee of Supply. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Yeah, I think, Honourable Chair, I think this it's an important point to suss out and just spend a little bit of time looking at, because, again, what we heard on the doorsteps very clearly was people were looking for that sort of direct connection to action. Maybe I can just characterize it that way. We've heard some troubling stories over the last, months since I've assumed the role, where
community members and for no fault of their own or no criticism of this feeling, but they certainly felt frustrated. They felt helpless when it came to the issue of public safety, and this is a very serious element to consider, because what we don't want, and we don't want ever, is for individuals to feel like they need to take things into their own hands or take action outside of the guidance of law enforcement and other experts in the field. And so, I know why they felt frustrated. I know that, when a government, as we had in the Heather Stephenson government, says, well, we're gonna clean up the streets, or I think the member for the member during question period. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting, Honourable Speaker, his constituency name, and I don't want to get that wrong and get called out of order here. But anyway, brought up in today in question period kind of a slogan that I've heard. In fact, there was a by-election in my neighborhood just recently, and so we saw lots of Pierre Poilievre literature coming in my mailbox, and I picked one up one day and it said, "Stop the crime." Like, didn't say that's the heading, and then here's our 5-point plan. It wasn't it didn't give any further details. It didn't even give any kind of nuance about what kind of crime or what does stopping it mean? Like 100. You're saying that you're going to stop the crime 100%. As the Premier said in question period today, that's kind of a talking down to Manitobans. It's insulting their intelligence. Manitobans understand these are complex issues. That's why when we talk about getting tough on crime, we also talk about getting tough on the root causes of crime. And the member opposite will know if he's knocked on any doors recently, like in Tuxedo, for instance. We spent a bunch of time out there. The great people of Tuxedo, I think, have a good MLA who's doing a great job raising their issues now in the legislature. But what we heard directly from them was they say, my garage got broken into and they took my chainsaw and I'm upset. And you go, yeah, I'm upset when I'm a victim of crime as well. And then you go, but this is there's larger issues. The cuts that we saw in education have an impact on public safety. The cuts that we saw during the Heather Stephenson years to healthcare even have an impact. Certainly the cuts in the Department of Families or the new Department of Health, of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness certainly have had an impact. So we heard very directly from those folks. What they told us is they said, we want to be part of the solution. We want to work with you to solve the issue of public safety and make our communities safer. And so the security rebate program was a concrete way that we could do this. And what they said was they wanted to see this money flow directly to them as a separate rebate. I appreciate what the member's saying. I know he starts off by saying delays. He's worried about delays to get the money out. If we did this as a tax credit, of course, everybody would be waiting until, I guess, next April if they file their taxes on time. We thought this was an easier way or a faster way, certainly a faster way, but maybe even an easier way or a simpler way to get the money out the door. What we didn't maybe anticipate is the resources that were required to fully appreciate the demand, the pent-up demand for this kind of program. And so that's where the increases to staff time and a streamlining of the process, some further direction on ways that we can work with folks. Again, we want to give them that support. It's not just fill out the form or get it right or get it wrong, and if you get it wrong, you're on your own. We wanted to give them support, and so I know staff has been reaching out and working through some technical issues and other problems with applications. Bottom line is we saw this as the quickest and fastest, most direct way, certainly, to get the money out into people's pockets. And, more work to do, but we see it's getting out now.
The honourable member for Brandon West.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I appreciate, again, the answers that I'm getting from the minister's staff and through the minister. It's excellent to hear these. I forgot to acknowledge on the last question, so I'd like to thank him when he said that I will one day find myself being a picture on a wall in the minister's office. So I know he's looking into the future 3 years, and when government will change and we'll have this. So I appreciate it and the vote of confidence. And I'm sure if he was in my riding, he would vote for me as well. So with those sort of statements, I appreciate that very much, Mr. Chairperson. When we look at the camera program, the number of people that applied for it, 8,800 applicants, I'm wondering if that can be broke down just a little bit further for how many were residential and how many were businesses. Applications. I don't know if that's possible, if they put it under their name or if they just put it under business. And the reason I ask this, Honourable Chairperson, is according to the CFIB, only 2% of their members applied and received the security rebate. Of course, individuals from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business are very important to the economy of Manitoba. They're very important to ensuring that small businesses thrive. And small businesses are often the target of crime, and they don't have the same resources as the large retail consumers have that can put extreme dollars into public safety. So I'd like to ask, when previously asked what's specifically this government was doing to help out small business with the significant increases of vandalism, theft, and criminal activity they were experiencing. Honourable Chair, members from the NDP pointed to the $300 security rebate system, and we know that a standard rebate for a security system for a business can be in the area of $5,000, $10,000, or even more. When I had quotes for my constituency office, some of them came quite high. So, given the recent data from the CFIB, we know that this program has not been utilized by small business the way that I would have hoped to see. And some of what I'm hearing is the fact that it was very difficult to fill out the application, that people didn't want to see their time being more valuable than the time it's taken, the frustration to fill out these forms. So can the minister share what specifically the department is doing to help support small businesses through these challenging times? And with that, the question that was first asked is the comparison between private residential camera systems and camera systems for businesses.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
So first, before we get to the answer here, Honourable Chair, I just wanted to clarify for the member about the picture on the wall, because, you know, I don't know why he's selling himself so short, because, you know, there's a whole wall of portraits of esteemed speakers of this chamber, as well as premiers. And so I'm not sure why he's selling himself so short on just a picture in a ministerial office. He could get a whole portrait painted of him, and that could be in his future. I also want to mention that he may have seen that I think they've probably hung up the latest legislative class picture up in up in the hallway there. So he's already on the wall. So you know, I always said, as soon as I entered this chamber, I appreciate the opportunity to serve, and I look forward to new opportunities and new ways to serve. But you know, you get that picture up on the wall anywhere in this place, and I think that's something to be proud of and something to hold in high regard. With regards to his specific question on businesses, and you know, I would maybe just, I think he did the same, and forgive me, Chair, if I get this a little bit wrong in terms of how he characterized it, but the way that I would maybe characterize it, and again, I think along with him, is that the biggest impact this can have is on small businesses. As we know, and we've had several meetings with the Retail Council of Canada and with others who you know, represent all sizes of businesses, and certainly there are a lot of challenges, and we're working with them on addressing a lot of concerns. He was at the Retail Summit. I know the member opposite was at the Retail Summit, and there were over 400 retailers there of all different sizes and all different compositions who are very interested in the steps that we're taking, again, around security and safety, but even around enhanced security training and opportunities that we're looking forward to in the future. So certainly a lot of bigger businesses maybe wouldn't apply to this specific program, but what we're seeing is first of all, that small businesses are engaging. The number is very you know, fairly small in terms of who has identified or has a business address, but of course the member opposite would know that if you're just a sole proprietorship or just a small company, you may just use your home address for the purposes of the rebate. Really doesn't really differentiate between you know, what that information is. We'll send you the rebate. It is $300, up to $300 for individuals and for businesses. The other thing though that I'll say, and I think this is really where the member opposite continues to miss the bigger picture, because we know that businesses have already been doing this in terms of security cameras, security systems, security barriers for many years. This has been a part of the investment that they make. And of course, we work very closely with businesses like you know, Canadian Footwear. Brian Sharfstein has been a great friend and somebody who's given us great advice on ways we can enhance the retail crime initiative. We can work on public safety more generally. But we know business owners like Ravi Rambaran, who if the member hasn't been, Four Crowns Restaurant over on McPhillips is a great location. Ravi's doing amazing things throughout the city. He says, quote, "You wouldn't believe how many people get caught on camera, and then a month later the police find them. It's awesome." And the police do a great job of actually finding these people, he says, and that's what we've heard from law enforcement as well. But what the member opposite just continues to not get is that it's not about necessarily the one camera or one system that the business can buy, but it's about the house down the back lane who invests in their own security system to watch their own property, that then the police canvass and they go over and they say, you know, do you have the footage? Can we get that? And can that be part of the larger investigation? Like, again, for the member opposite to be so out of touch with how law enforcement is using these tools and the fact that this actually works, it's not just about one individual protecting themselves. It's about this idea that all of us coming together can make a difference in public safety. That's how it works. And so I wish the member opposite, this is maybe just where his PC frame, you know, so narrowly individualistic, can't understand how when you work together as a community you can have a bigger impact. Businesses are happy that all of their community is safer, and it makes everything safer, and again, them more prosperous and more profitable. So that's what we're really working towards. This program has been a good step in the right direction, and I'd love to say more about the CFIB because they've shared some really interesting stuff with me just recently.
The honourable member for Brandon West.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, and you know, I take it with a grain of salt when the Minister of Justice talks about myself being out of touch with law enforcement and with justice initiatives. I worked in that field specifically for 33 years. I keep well engaged with a number of the people within the community, and attend all of their events regularly and keep that conversation going. And especially when we're talking about security cameras, and my limited focus, I believe, is what the minister said. Maybe he should get out and about and visit some of the local police services and some of the local initiatives that are flourishing. And because I'm from the city and I know the program specifically, the SNAP program that was undertaken by the Brandon Police Service and the City of Brandon. And that is called, the SNAP is an acronym for the Safer Neighborhoods and Policing Initiative. And what this does, Honourable Chair, is it gets people who have camera systems, whether it be retail, whether it be provincial, whether it be through the school divisions, whether it's the residential, they can register online with the Brandon Police Service and have their cameras registered. And that SNAP program allows the police service to quickly go into the database and see where the cameras are that could have captured some crime. Now, of course, I want to dispel the rumors or any beliefs that the police can actually go inside of their security cameras. That is not something that happens. They give written permission for police to use the video that they voluntarily turn over to the police. So, of course, I don't want people thinking that this is some sort of Orwellian theory where, Big Brother's watching you. It's the case where the neighborhood's watching you and individuals are watching you, and they want to partner with the police. And these are programs that came in under the PC time in office. And again, I would offer the minister to get outside of the perimeter, actually jump in a car and drive, not go on Zoom, and talk to law enforcement. I would personally set up a meeting for the minister, Mr. Speaker, with the police service on these initiatives so that he can bring it forward. And I know the member for Brandon East would also love to tout the great things that City of Brandon and the Brandon Police Service have been doing for our collective community. So with this said, is there any incentive to move forward with businesses and making a specific program for small businesses, and one that's not complicated to get onto the database and have lots of forms? And I'm just wondering if this is something that this government would consider, Honourable Chairperson.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
So just to give the member opposite just the specific numbers at this point, what we understand in terms of those who have, again, self-identified, I don't know if that's the correct terminology, but as part of the application process, businesses that have applied for this program, it's 320 businesses that have applied to this point. And of course, there's there is more work to do, and again, this is why when we're talking about the success of the Retail Crime Summit, it's really something to appreciate. We heard this time and time again when we were setting up our initial public safety summit, but then when we traveled the province, and I'm looking over here at our intrepid Assistant Deputy Minister. I know he won't want me to point him out in this way, but holy smokes, did he put some miles on over the spring, I should say, and into the summer. reaching out to communities and hearing directly from them and reaching out. AMM was a great partner to help us facilitate a lot of those conversations. There were also individual meetings and one-off conversations that we had in communities across the province. But what we found is as we're working through this, in every community that we were in every situation, there were business owners who were saying, we also want to be part of the solution. And not just part of the solution in some sort of like esoteric way, but like an actual dollars and cents commitment to making a difference. And I mean, this is just how business owners think, is they think in dollars and cents, and they see the impact on their businesses. They see the disruption to their business and the impact that has, and then they see their the goods that they're losing or that theft is impacting them. The other thing I'll just say, Honourable Chair, is that time and time again we heard from folks, business owners, saying, we care about our employees. What are we doing to keep our employees safe when it comes to public safety? And so we also convened a public safety summit meeting with labor and brought together folks from many different industries and many different perspectives to say what is the impact for the employees, for your workers who are out just trying to earn a paycheck and worrying about whether they're going to come home at the end of their shift. We often think about that language in terms of like an industrial workplace, a construction workplace, somewhere where you work around dangerous equipment or in dangerous circumstances. But in this case, it's people who are just going to work the cash register maybe at their local grocery store, and then they have to worry about staying safe. So we engaged those folks as part of the Public Safety Summit tour that we did. And again, we heard very clearly that there is real opportunity for businesses to be more engaged. That's why we convened the Retail Summit. And the Retail Council was a fantastic partner in that. They ensured that we heard from folks across industry and across businesses. And they came up with some really solid, strong ideas, and they're really eager to work with us in this regard. And so certainly there are opportunities for us to build on that success. I think that's one of the areas we're going to see some real opportunity and to build. I'm just getting corrected here. I think I said 320 businesses, 332. So the member opposite can write that down and plug that into the old calculator there, the adding machine, and make sure that he figures out what percentage that is. But again, what we're hearing is that they're looking for any and all support and opportunity, and that's really what we're the way that we're approaching this. We're not going to focus in on one element or another. And again, when we're talking about not only a direct response in the moment, but how do we make communities safer by investing upstream? How do we stop some of this violence from perpetrating in our communities upstream? And that is really all about a larger government response. And so every day I'm thankful that I've got my team on the government side of the benches here, the Minister of Families, Minister of Education, the Minister of Housing, Addictions, Homelessness, the Minister of Health. Every element where you see these cuts having a real impact is, at the end of the day, if they're involved in the justice system, there's been a failure somewhere upstream, and that's really the work that we're trying to do, while at the same time give people the confidence, work with business owners, and give them opportunities. So lots more to come and lots more to say on that in that regard.
The honourable member for Brandon West.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, appreciate the staff providing these answers. So, it does make a difference knowing the actual numbers. So when you move up from 332 to 330 to 342, it actually makes a difference of 3.64% to 3.77%, and that's the number that applied. So I don't think the CFIB is far off when they said that they only had 2% of the people that applied and were successful. Based on what the Minister of Justice himself said, is that there is some issues. Some people have difficulties filling out the applications. Some people have, they didn't provide the proper information. So again, in businesses where money equals dollars, their livelihood, and keeping the businesses open, it's important to have a system that's maybe dedicated to business rather than mixing in with business and residential as well. You also talked a little bit about the rural crime initiatives that have happened here, and I'm wondering, since the spring, or sorry, the retail crime initiatives, I should say, I believe I said rural crime, Mr. Chair, and meant retail crime. So since the spring, we've heard the announcement of the retail crime initiative, and we've seen multiple announcements of extensions, and whether those extensions were in place or whether this is, for capitalize on media, that's not for me to ponder here, although it makes me wonder whether it is to get some media play for the minister and his government, because that's important to this premier, to make sure that he's seen positively in the media. He doesn't like these distractions that happen on a regular basis when his ministers are called to question or there's mistakes made. So looking at the retail crime, I'm just wondering, I've heard from businesses in my own community and businesses around Manitoba that are struggling to keep their doors open. I'm just wondering if there's going to be an extension of the retail crime initiative brought outside of the perimeter, the highway that runs around Winnipeg. We've heard these extensions. We've heard the 3 different areas. We've heard that it's chasing crime out of those areas to new hotspots. But I'm wondering if this program that is being touted as successful, why it hasn't been expanded to areas like the city of Brandon, Thompson, DePaw, Swan River, some down in the southern area of the province with Altona, Morden, and Winkler. And again, I know the MLA from Brandon East, the Minister of Sports, Culture, Heritage, and Arts, is nodding his head because he'd like to see this in Brandon as well. So, I'm sure he talks about this at his caucus table as well. So I appreciate the support across the aisle.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, again, I appreciate that the member opposite is taking the time to talk about some of our successes and some of our real hands-on initiatives that we've undertaken and seen some real success with. I do take issue, and I'm not sure why. Again, maybe he's being passed notes by his political staff telling him he's got to sort of ramp things up and take shots at the Premier and say, oh, the Premier just in it for the photo op, and this is unfortunate because he should know better. He should understand the real impact that this has made. If he spent any time talking to the Winnipeg Police Service, understanding the difference that it's made in how they police communities and how they're able to respond to communities, we're talking about some real positive opportunity and initiative that they've been willing to work with us to undertake. And really, I think for me, the biggest impact, or one of the ways that it's having the biggest impact in community is that they're able to do a kind of community policing that they hadn't been able to do because of the lack of resources under the PC government. I mean, it's been 7 years without any increases in funding from
the provincial government, and so I can understand that the resources were stretched pretty thin. What that impact that has on members is that they're not able to respond in that kind of community way that we expect of our law enforcement. We kind of think about how we understand policing to operate, that they would come and they would be preventative in some cases, they'd have a presence in others, and that when something does happen, they'd be able to investigate it or be able to address it in a way that's actually thorough and responsive to the needs of, in this case, businesses, but for anybody in the community. So it was very much appreciated that this initiative was started, and so he wants to talk about photo ops. I don't care too much about photo ops. What I care about is the flood of calls that we got in our office talking about the real impact this has had, the difference that it's made for businesses, from regular community folks who walked into a store in Osborne and said, "Oh, a whole bunch of cops in here. There's something must have happened," and they, struck up the conversation and realized no, they're just in checking in, making sure that everything's going well. So there's been that sort of anecdotal response and success, but that's not really what drove, or wasn't fully what drove our commitment to expanding and extending the program. What we saw was that there were 769 arrests. There were over almost 9,000 engagements with businesses and community members. There were 224 provincial offense notices issued, and there were over $60,000 in products that were recovered. And this makes a big impact for retailers. So they understood that this initiative is not just shouldn't just be a short-term solution, but that we need to understand how we can replicate and build off of the successes. What that meant was, in the short term, or in the immediate term, I guess I should characterize it as, we came out and we said we were going to extend this project through to the end of the year. We're all getting ready for Christmas. My son, the beauty of technology, he's sharing his Christmas list for Santa all with me on my phone. It gets updated every day, Honorable Chair. So I know I'm going to be out in the shopping mall pretty soon, and of course we've seen some of the biggest concerns around public safety in that setting. So we wanted to extend it through to the end of the year. What I will say, though, is that, as I said, we've been doing a ton of work out in community. We were in Brandon offering money for a downtown community safety initiative. We were up in Thompson doing the same. We were in other communities looking at their unique needs and what their suggestions were about how we could fund initiatives that had the greatest impact in their communities. So there's lots of opportunities on the table, but in terms of this kind of community policing initiative, or the way that we could build off of additional resources for law enforcement and how they could do their job differently and have a bigger impact in community. Yes, the message has been heard that rural Manitoba, and you heard the Premier in question period say that very unequivocally, there's opportunities there. I think there's an opportunity for us to build off of the success in Winnipeg and see how it could be translated or built in other places. That being said, this is all an ongoing conversation, because the other thing I've learned, and the member opposite should know well, is that in every community you hear a different set of realities and a different set of opportunities. And so we're willing to listen to each community individually.
The honourable member for Brandon West.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I will absolutely agree with that. In every community, there's a different set of circumstances. There's a different set of initiatives, but there's also a whole lot of similarities. And I think what other rural policing areas, from what I'm hearing, are feeling disenfranchised by this NDP government and this minister, who can find over $1.5 million in a budget that is supposed to be relatively tight. $9 million removed from it in this last budget, and all of a sudden, some of these areas we can find $1.5 million to support the Winnipeg Police Service, and I don't begrudge that at all, because I know that they do incredibly hard work. The minister mentioned about incredible hard work that's being done in Osborne Village right now, in the Osborne area. And that's one of the areas that is funded and has police resources put to it. And it doesn't escape me that that's the same constituency that the Premier himself is from. And so, you know, we're funding the Premier's own constituency with the safety initiatives and leaving the rest of the province out of it. And we've seen this, Honourable Chair, with a number of programs, and, you know, specifically the only daycare that's been announced by the NDP, or the only opening, has been again in the Premier's own constituency, Fort Rouge. And you know, it's concerning, because Manitobans are saying, how come some people get privilege and others don't? So I'm wondering, the rebate program, how many cameras and how many applications were put in the Fort Rouge area, or even if we can narrow it down to the Osborne Village area, and you know, is it making an impact? Have we got any statistics on that? And secondly, if this program is very successful, and I've heard the minister tout it, talk about the benefits, the fact that it's had real impacts, can this be rolled out to other jurisdictions, and why hasn't it? Why are other jurisdictions having to play the poor second cousin?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, I would caution the member opposite using those kind of words in the House, and I mean, certainly the actual support and funding that's been increased to rural Manitoba in terms of policing is significant. I read some of these numbers out in question period for his benefit. I'll read them again. Lac du Bonnet, $33,000 increase. Steinbach, an $800,000 increase. Porters La Prairie, a $500,000 increase. Winkler, $600,000. Selkirk, $400,000. Morden, $500,000. Stonewall, $190,000. Niverville, $300,000 increase. Swan River, $130,000. Verdun, $100,000. Beausejour, $100,000. And his hometown, $2 million. You know, it's the reason why, you know, again, the member wants to put those kind of words on the record about, you know, some kind of perceived insult to rural Manitoba. Those are words. We're taking action. This is a real, in dollars and cents, commitment to show where the focus that we put on rural Manitoba. I'll also point out, because the member opposite hasn't yet, that Indigenous communities and increases to partnerships in Indigenous communities have been an incredibly important part of how we're addressing crime throughout the province. And they, along with municipalities, Indigenous communities have been nothing but willing partners to work with us on enhancing public safety and looking at ways of finding partnerships and supporting law enforcement. So the premise of the question is off, and it's frustrating because you know, he talks about funding reduced overall, just in the public safety division, a 12.6% increase in money that's supporting work that's being done across our province. I'll also take issue with the idea that somehow this government is only focusing on one neighborhood because a certain member represents that neighborhood. I would suggest that if we took a poll of all the members on the opposite benches there, probably more of his caucus lives in the Osborne area, Osborne Village area, than any other party in this legislature. In fact, the member opposite himself might live now in the great community of Osborne Village, and so he should realize that it's about keeping everyone safe, and it's about keeping all Manitobans safe. It has nothing to do with what areas or you know, what places certain members live in. In fact, we worked with law enforcement. Again, the member opposite knows this. We don't direct police resources. We don't tell them, go to one community, go to one business, go do one thing or the other. What we say is, what are your needs? Where can you have the biggest impact? And then we fund, and then in this case, as a province, we funded specific resources to address those problems. And so he knows. In fact, I would willing to bet, I don't have the answer in front of me, but I'm willing to bet he spent most of his spring standing up and yelling and screaming in the legislature about the impact that we're seeing in places like Osborne Village, in the West End, and in the Exchange. But what we also didn't do is we said to law enforcement, this needs to be a broader response, and this needs to be in all communities that are seeing upticks in violence and in retail theft. So that's what we tasked the Winnipeg Police with, and they've been great partners. They have absolutely used those resources in a positive way. And when we said we're also bringing on additional resources and 12 new officers this fall, they were looking to us to see how we can again build off the success that we've had, and that we can find real opportunities to make communities safer. Not just one community or the other, but really every community that needs additional support. Again, back to the original question that the member asked, and I answered last, but I'll say it again. We are working with rural Manitoba. We're not doing it in a cookie cutter fashion. We're working with individual communities to find individual solutions, and they have been great partners for us so far. We're looking at more opportunities going forward. He should stay tuned. But we have been out in Brandon. He knows that. In fact, I think he was upset we didn't invite him to our public forum, but he's invited to the next one. I'll put that on the record. And we're always happy to work with everybody to make all communities safer.
The honourable member for Brandon West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to the member for Fort Garry until 4:45 p.m.
The honourable member for Fort Garry.
Thank you. The Attorney General of Manitoba is the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the Crown. He represents the Crown not as any sort of individual department or agency, and not the Premier, but the whole of government. And the role is to protect and uphold the rule of law and respect for the independence of the court. That's very different than being a Minister of Justice. Roughly about a month ago, the Premier basically made demeaning and inappropriate comments about the President of the Law Society of Manitoba. And he was condemned from coast to coast to coast. He became a national embarrassment for his ignorance. And the legal community reached out and was wondering, where was the Attorney General? Why wasn't the Attorney General making a statement in relation to the rule of law in Manitoba, including how we talk about and delegitimize actors in the justice system? So my question for the Attorney General was why he made no public statement, why he denied every media request to comment that was given to him, and why he since hasn't made any public statement condemning the ignorant comments of the Premier.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
I appreciate the question, and we're just having some conversation here, and I look forward to answering the member more thoroughly in just a moment. Maybe if I could ask him a question. Is it his intention to ask questions with regards to the role of the Attorney General? And the reason I ask that, of course, we have Owen Ferguson, who's a fantastic member of the team and somebody who understands public safety incredibly thoroughly. However, we do have the Assistant Deputy Attorney General, if I've got all those words in the right order, who might also have some perspective that might be helpful if that's the line of questioning that the member expects to undertake for the remainder of the time.
The Honourable Member for Fort Garry.
The Attorney General knows full well what I'm asking, and it comes down to a choice that he made in his role, that he took an oath, a solemn duty to the province of Manitoba, to uphold the rule of law. That's his job. He failed in that job. He abdicated his responsibility, and that job requires that at times when a premier or somebody steps over the line and starts attacking the foundations and the legitimacy of the judicial system, that as uncomfortable as it may be, they have to stand and show leadership to the community and call out that behavior and support the justice system and the rule of law. Now, he's a smart man, he knows this, he's just buying for time. And I think Manitobans haven't heard from him. He's never apologized. The legal community called out for weeks for some type of signs of life from this Attorney General, some display of leadership where he actually would put the interests of the province before his own personal partisan interests. That never happened. So I'll ask the question again, and we'll see if he has the character and the wherewithal to answer it. Why did he not make a public statement? Why has he not made a public statement since? And is there any plan on making any sort of public statement in relation to this incident to clear the air and to repair the broken trust between this Attorney General and the legal community in Manitoba? And finally, why has he dodged the media and refused to do media interviews in relation to his responsibility in this role? Does he not take it seriously?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to answer the question, and of course, the member opposite asked a very important question about the very specific role of the Attorney General, and it is something I talked a little bit earlier about the awesome responsibility that all of us have when you enter this building, whether as an MLA or as a minister. There's a certain amount of importance that is conveyed upon you in terms of the seriousness with which you take your role, and I think everybody who's in this chamber takes those roles very seriously. That being said, the Attorney General role is and even apart from those other roles, a specific set of expectations and requirements, and certainly one that I take very, very seriously. Again, the member opposite seemed to start his question by describing the role of the Attorney General, and seemed to understand the role that the Attorney General plays in terms of my responsibilities to Cabinet and to others, but then seems to conflate the role that I have as both, well, I guess all three. I'm MLA for Concordia, a member of the caucus, the NDP caucus, Minister of Justice, but then also on top of that, Attorney General. He seems to sort of keep or bring those three separate roles together in how he perceives the advice that, or lack of advice that was given by the Attorney General would be communicated to him or to others in the public. As he knows, the independence in the role and the nonpartisan, impartial role that the Attorney General plays is so very important to government, and the role or the advice that's given in Cabinet or lack of advice that's given at the Cabinet level is something that would not be necessarily shared publicly, and it would be confidential advice. It would be advice that, again, would be taken very seriously by government, but not necessarily something that would be put on display. And in fact, I would suggest that by overstepping those bounds and making those kinds of comments public, that would do as much damage in terms of the independence of that role as anything, as making a public statement that simply could be construed in a number of different ways. The member is, so I'll also say that the member is just wrong about the clear statement or the clear media statement that we made with regards to the importance that I place on the role of as Attorney General, as my role as Attorney General, but also just the importance of the law profession and defense lawyers as part of that, the legal system. And I did make that comment directly to the media, and he doesn't have the resources, I guess, to do all the research now that he may have had at his disposal before. I certainly can appreciate that it can be difficult to keep up with all the ins and outs. But I'll also say that subsequent to that, in terms of just media accessibility, I wouldn't suggest that I'm the most accessible minister, but I would say dozens of media interviews and responses on other subjects and other issues. And so I'm very accessible and very happy to communicate in terms of my role as the Minister of Justice. I'm also happy and willing to communicate in my role as Attorney General. However, making a comment about something that at the end of the day was a caucus decision. It was a decision that political MLAs made and statements that they have made. If I was to make public comments about those, it certainly wouldn't be something that the member opposite would necessarily be privy to, but we certainly want to make sure that everyone understands the importance that we know that we place upon the legal profession and the actors within it, including specifically those members of the Law Society who do incredible work, who put so much extra time and effort into the work to ensure that there's that there's robust support for the legal profession. So specifically the Law Society, but all defense lawyers and of course everyone in the legal profession, we have nothing but respect for the work that they do.
The honourable member for Fort Garry.
Should note for the record that it took the minister 10 minutes to come up with that non-answer, and the previous time took 5 minutes to come up with that non-answer. He took 15 minutes not to answer that question. Now, it's not disrespectful to me. It's not an insult to me. It's an insult to Manitobans. And it's an insult to the legal community for whom I'm their conduit to be asking this question. So, again, the Attorney General is not a partisan position. It's supposed to be above partisanship. Apparently, this Attorney General doesn't believe that. Apparently, this Attorney General wants to politicize the position, and he has broken the trust between this government and the legal community. They simply do not trust this government. They do not trust this Attorney General. And we see why today. It's on display that he would rather play procedural games and try to burn out the clock than to give an honest accounting of his failure as an Attorney General. So the question that was asked to him that he's not answered twice now was why he never condemned the ignorant statements of the Premier, why he never apologized to the legal community, and why he didn't do anything to sort of resolve this situation. It took several weeks before the Premier got shamed into apologizing himself, and at one point said he wasn't going to provide an apology to the Law Society president for demeaning and disrespectful comments that he made in relation to her. And the legal community looked for leadership and didn't find any from this Attorney General. So how does he go forward from here? What's his plan to reestablish trust with the legal community? How are they supposed to take him seriously after watching this grotesque display this afternoon?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, again, I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit more about the role of the Attorney General in the province, but more broadly, the role that I, take very seriously in collaborating and getting feedback from members of the legal community from a variety of different perspectives. And what I will say is that I've very much appreciated the good advice that I've gotten, that I've been able to collaborate with folks on. And of course, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to ensure that we're listening and we're not just talking about respect, because I think we talked about that earlier in a different context where words are one thing, but the actions are really what we're talking about here. And so the opportunity that I've undertaken is to reach out to I mentioned the Law Society earlier, but I can mention the Bar Association. I can mention the Faculty of Law. And even students that are in Robson Hall and in the program at the University of Manitoba. We listen to folks. We listen to their perspective. Defense lawyers, certainly. We've talked to many and look forward to further meetings. So there's lots of opportunities, and I'm going to take every one that I can, not just to listen, but also act and show in real terms how we can show that respect. Again, something that we've certainly taken very seriously was to right some of the wrongs that were done under the Stephenson government. Again, one of the things that I was very proud of was to work with our Crown attorneys to ensure that we came up with a contract and settled some outstanding issues with them. Increasing the pay, getting them back into alignment with other jurisdictions, and certainly there's more work to do there, but we're eager to get to work on that. To reduce vacancies. I mean, one of the sort of eye-opening pieces, we talked a little bit about it in opposition, but we've done, I think, a little bit more, we were able to get a little bit more information about just how bad some of the vacancy rates, specifically on court clerks, were under the previous government. And I don't need to tell the member opposite how vital court clerks are to the operation of the courts, and it was something that the members opposite in the Stephenson government seemed to have no interest in addressing, and we've made serious strides in bringing those vacancy numbers down and really just showing clerks how much we respect them. I had a chance to go over and meet some of the clerks here in Winnipeg as well as Brandon, and just kind of show that level of respect, which was a real positive step that we were able to take. We're hiring more crowns, more Crown attorneys in our province, and something that, again, shows that level of respect, because not only is it important for us to take the steps internally, but to build on the partnerships that we've seen. We know access to justice remains a serious issue outside of the perimeter, and most specifically in northern Manitoba, remote communities. And so I've also undertaken the opportunity to work with certainly municipalities throughout the province, but also work with Indigenous communities and Indigenous organizations. The MKO is a great partner who is really on the leading edge of some access to justice initiatives that we're now supporting, and we want to look to see for further partnerships. So again, this is not just about the words that are spoken, although again I've been very clear in the words that I've spoken that my respect for the role of defense lawyers and all in the justice system, and I'm certainly willing to do that any day of the week to make sure that those words are spoken. But it's not just about words, it's about action, and it's about, in this case, putting dollars and resources towards addressing some of the issues that were allowed to fester, which, I'll just put on the record that, the member opposite, he was first to stand up in this house and talk about some of the deficiencies in the under the Stephenson government, and I hope that he would undertake to, focus up on issues that relate to access to justice, and make sure that he's representing his constituents in that way as well.
The honourable member for Brandon West.
Well, thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Based on the, I guess, awkwardly long time to answer these questions, as well as the fact the government House Leader didn't leave a lot of time for estimates, I will have no further questions at this time.
Hearing no further questions, I'll now put the question on the resolutions. Resolution 4.2, resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding 61,230,000. I will restart that. $61,203,000 for justice, crown, law for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 4.3, resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $3,823,000 for Justice Legislative Council for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 4.4, resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $214,659,000 for Justice Correctional Services for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 4.5, resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $86,523,000 for Justice Courts for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 4.6, resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $332,829,000 for Justice Public Safety for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. Resolution 4.7, resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $2,660,000 for Justice Capital Assets for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. For the information of the committee, there are no monies allocated for Resolution 4.8 this year, so there does not need to be a vote on this resolution. The information was included in the books to reflect change from last year. The last item to be considered for the estimates of this department is item 4.1, bracket A, the minister's salary contained in Resolution 4.1. At this point, we request that all ministerial and opposition staff leave the chamber for the consideration of this last item. Resolution 4.1, resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $66,375,000. Apologies. The floor is open for questions. The Honourable Member for Brandon West.
Is this the time I can move? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this. You know, I look at the work that's being done in justice and what has been done in past years, and the significant work that was done, particularly in the past 7.5 years in justice on this. And I know that there's significantly more work that could be undertaken at this time. So I move that line item 4.1.1A be amended so that the Minister of Justice salary be reduced to $300, the same as the camera rebate.
Read them. The Honourable Member for Brandon West, to restate your motion.
Right. My apologies. I didn't realize this had to be in writing, and therefore I move that line item 04.1.1A be amended so that the minister's salary be reduced to $300.
It has been moved by the Honourable Member for Brandon West that line item 04.11 bracket A be amended so that the minister's salary be reduced to $300. The motion is in order. Are there any questions or comments on the motion? The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, Honourable Chair. I appreciate the questions, the conversations that we had here this afternoon. I think there was some worthwhile discussion, and certainly, you know, I think maybe we've helped the member opposite understand a little bit better about how Manitobans are really intent on working together, not dividing one another, not using divisive language or rhetoric, and really coming together in ways that we can find commonality. And I think I feel like maybe we've made some progress, and maybe tomorrow in question period, the member opposite will, you know, just maybe say he supports a lot of the initiatives we've talked about today. And more specifically, I guess I can put on the record the machete restriction, the long-bladed weapon bill that we've brought forward. But I just wanted to briefly put on the record, and you know, the member opposite mentions the $300. You know, I'm not too concerned about my salary. I don't think anyone that gets into this line of work does it for the money. It really is about service to other Manitobans, and that's how I take my role. So he can do what he wants with my salary. But I think it just really shows, it demonstrates how out of touch the member opposite is when he starts his debate by defending the government of Heather Stephenson. And we often say, well, every member opposite ran under Heather Stephenson's banner, and so there's some level of endorsement for you know, the approach that she took. But really, the member opposite seems to take it to a whole nother level. He really does seem to be a true believer in the government that Heather Stephenson had in this province. And he knows very well, he knows full well the divisive nature of that government, the impact that it's had, the long-lasting impact that it's had on on the province. Certainly, we've got a lot of work in healthcare. The Department of Families, I know, is digging out from a lot of the mess that was created, the cuts that were created, and the impact that those have on real people. And that work is being done in our department as well. And what we inherited was a department that saw nothing but cuts and nothing but less money for, not just within the department, but even public safety throughout the province. And so, we've taken steps. The $300 rebate is real steps, and it's going to make communities safer. I hope the member opposite really takes this seriously. That he can go a lot farther if he adopts our mantra of one Manitoba with one future, and that we all work together to make our communities safer. That's what we're going to continue to do, and the member opposite would be well served to undertake that himself.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, is the committee ready for the question? Shall the motion pass? I hear a no. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Nay. In my opinion, the nays have it. Are there any other questions on the resolution? Seeing none, I'll put the question to the resolution. Resolution 4.1, resolve that there be granted to His Majesty a sum not exceeding $66,375,000 for justice, corporate, and strategic services for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2025. Shall the resolution pass? The resolution is accordingly passed. And just to confirm, the motion was defeated. This concludes the section for the Department of Justice. The hour being 5 p.m., committee rise. Call in the speaker. The hour being 5 p.m., this House is adjourned and stands adjourned until 1:30 p.m. tomorrow.